The air in Lagos was heavy with humidity, clinging to Amara's skin like a second dress as she stood at the edge of the hotel ballroom, watching her best friend Chioma twirl in her wedding gown. The fairy lights strung across the ceiling cast everyone in a golden glow, but Amara felt anything but magical. 3 rejection emails had hit her inbox that morning. 3 more design firms that wouldn't be hiring her. "You look like you need this more than I do," a deep voice said, and a crystal glass of champagne appeared in front of her. Amara turned, the retort dying on her lips as she locked eyes with the man beside her. Tall, with shoulders that filled out his tailored agbada perfectly, he had the kind of face that made her fingers itch for a sketch pad. Sharp cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that seemed to see right through her practiced smile. "That obvious?" she asked, accepting the drink. His laugh was low, private. "Let's just say you're the only person at a Nigerian wedding who isn't dancing." "I'm saving my energy," Amara replied, taking a sip. The champagne was expensive, bubbles dancing on her tongue. Nothing like the cheap wine she'd been surviving on since her father's medical bills had drained their family savings. "For what?" he asked, moving closer. He smelled like sandalwood and something distinctly male. Amara met his gaze, feeling a recklessness she rarely allowed herself. Maybe for the right invitation. Before he could respond, a woman in a sleek red gown slid between them, her manicured hand possessively grasping his arm. "Ekene, darling, your mother is looking for you," she said, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cold as she assessed Amara. "I'll be there shortly, Zainab," he replied, his tone shifting to something more formal. "I was just chatting with Amara," she supplied, suddenly feeling underdressed in her borrowed dress. Zainab's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How sweet. Well, don't keep the family waiting too long, Ekene." With a final glance at Amara, dismissive, as if cataloging her as no threat, she sauntered away. "Your girlfriend?" Amara asked, already backing away. She didn't need drama. "Business partner's daughter," he corrected quickly. Nothing more. He stepped closer, reclaiming the space between them. "Dance with me, Amara." She should say no. She had responsibilities. Her mother waiting at home, her younger brother's school fees due next week, a portfolio that needed updating. But tonight, watching Chioma begin her happily ever after while Amara's life seemed stuck in quicksand, she wanted to feel something other than worry. "One dance," she agreed. 1 dance became 2. 2 became 5. Throughout the night, Amara felt Zainab's eyes burning into her back, but with each glass of champagne, she cared less. Ikene's hand on the small of her back felt like an anchor in a storm she hadn't realized was raging inside her. He didn't ask about her job or her family. Instead, he wanted to know what made her laugh, whether she preferred sunrise or sunset, and if she believed in fate. "I believe we make our own luck," she told him, her body swaying against his as the band played a slower song. "And what if luck delivers something unexpected?" His breath was warm against her ear. Amara looked up at him, at this stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger at all. "Then you grab it with both hands and don't let go." His room was on the top floor, a suite with floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased Lagos at night, a tapestry of lights stretching to the horizon. But Amara barely noticed the view. Not when Ekene was looking at her, like she was the only sight worth seeing. His lips found hers, gentle at first, then hungry. And for the first time in months, Amara stopped thinking about tomorrow. She thought only of his hands, mapping her body like he was memorizing every curve, of his voice, whispering her name like a prayer against her skin, of the way he moved above her, inside her, making her feel both fragile and powerful. Later, tangled in sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, Amara watched him sleep. In the moonlight filtering through the windows, she traced the contours of his face with her gaze, committing them to memory. This wasn't her life. Tomorrow, she would go back to reality, to job applications and mounting bills and the responsibility of being the oldest child in a family barely holding together. But tonight had been hers. A stolen moment of passion, a memory to hold on to when things got hard again. As the first hint of dawn crept through the windows, Amara's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Where are you? Tobe's fever is back." Reality crashed back, harsh and demanding. With a last look at Ekene's sleeping form, Amara slipped from the bed. She dressed silently, then hesitated at the door. On an impulse, she grabbed the hotel notepad and scribbled, "Thank you for a night I won't forget." She placed it on the pillow next to him, then left without looking back. Or so she thought. But as the door clicked shut behind her, she didn't see Ekene's eyes open, didn't see him reach for the note with a smile that faded as he read it, didn't hear him whisper, "This isn't goodbye, Amara." 6 weeks later, Amara sat in the reception area of Nwachukwu Media Group, her portfolio clutched tightly in trembling hands. This interview was her last hope. Her mother's medication had eaten through their emergency fund, and Toby's university fees were due next month. The receptionist looked up with a practiced smile. "Mr. Nwachukwu will see you now." Amara stood, smoothing down her only professional dress, a navy sheath that had once belonged to her mother. She followed the clicking heels of the receptionist down a hallway lined with award-winning ad campaigns, each one more impressive than the last. "Amara Okafor?" A woman stepped out of an office, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "I'm Nneka Adebayo, head of talent acquisition." Nneka was stunning, tall, elegant, with a confidence that came from a lifetime of privilege. The enormous diamond on her left hand caught the light, almost blinding. "Pleasure to meet you," Amara said, shaking her hand. "Thank you for considering my application." "Your portfolio impressed us," Nneka said, her tone professional but warm. "Especially the work you did for those small businesses pro bono. It showed initiative and community spirit, which we value at NMG." As they walked toward the conference room, Nneka chatted easily about the company culture, the creative freedom they offered, the benefits package. Amara began to relax slightly. Maybe this would work out after all, until they turned the corner and nearly collided with a man exiting an office. Ekene, the man from the wedding, the man whose bed she'd slipped out of 6 weeks ago. Time seemed to slow as recognition dawned in his eyes, followed quickly by something unrateable. Amara's heart hammered against her ribs, her mind scrambling for something, anything, to say. "Darling!" Nneka's voice broke the silence as she leaned in to press a kiss to Ikene's cheek. "I was just taking Miss Okafor to her interview." "Ekene Nwachukwu," he said, extending his hand to Amara as if they were meeting for the first time. His face betrayed nothing, but his grip on her hand tightened slightly. "CEO of Nwachukwu Media Group." "Amara Okafor," she managed, her voice steadier than she expected. "Graphic designer. Soon to be our newest talent, I hope," Nneka added, slipping her arm through Ikene's. The diamond ring flashed again, and this time Amara couldn't miss its significance. Engaged. He was engaged, to the woman interviewing her for a job she desperately needed. "I look forward to seeing what you bring to the table, Miss Okafor," Ekene said, his voice professional, distant. No hint of the man who'd whispered her name in the dark. "Thank you, Mr. Nwachukwu," Amara replied, equally formal. As Nneka led her away, Amara could feel Ekene's eyes boring into her back. Her mind raced. Should she withdraw her application? No, she couldn't. Her family needed this job. But how could she work here, knowing what had happened between them? The interview itself was a blur. Amara answered questions on autopilot, showcased her portfolio, and discussed her design philosophy. Through it all, Nneka was professional, asking insightful questions that suggested genuine interest in Amara's abilities. "I think you'd be a valuable addition to our team," Nneka said as they wrapped up. "We'll be in touch by the end of the week." "Thank you for the opportunity," Amara replied, gathering her portfolio. As she stood to leave, Nneka added, "One more thing, Miss Okafor. The NMG family is tight-knit. Loyalty and discretion are values we prize highly." Her smile was pleasant, but there was steel beneath it. "I hope that's something you share." Was it a warning? Did she know? Amara's throat went dry, but she nodded. "Of course." The elevator doors had just closed when they suddenly reopened, and Ekene stepped in. Alone. For a moment, neither spoke, the tension between them thick enough to cut. "You left without saying goodbye," he finally said, his voice low. Amara stared straight ahead. "I left a note." "Thank you for a night I won't forget," he quoted. Rather impersonal, don't you think? "What did you expect?" she asked, finally turning to look at him. "You're engaged." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "I wasn't then." "Oh, so you got engaged in the last 6 weeks? Congratulations on your whirlwind romance." Amara couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. "It's complicated," Ekene said, running a hand through his hair. "Nneka and it's more of a business arrangement. Our families." "I don't need an explanation," Amara cut him off. "What happened that night was a mistake, one I don't intend to repeat." The elevator stopped, the doors sliding open to reveal the lobby. "Amara, wait," Ekene said, catching her arm as she moved to exit. "About the job. If you're planning to reject me because of what happened between us, just do it now," she said, chin lifted in defiance despite the fear churning in her stomach. "But know that I need this job, and I'm qualified for it. What happened that night won't affect my work." Ekene's expression softened. "I wasn't going to reject you. Quite the opposite. The job is yours if you want it." Relief flooded through her, quickly followed by suspicion. "Why?" "Because you're talented," he said simply. "Your portfolio speaks for itself. And because," he hesitated, his voice dropping lower, "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." Before Amara could respond, a familiar voice called across the lobby. "Ekene, there you are." Zainab, the woman from the wedding, strode toward them, her stilettos clicking aggressively on the marble floor. She was even more beautiful in daylight, her tailored pantsuit emphasizing curves that had clearly been designed to distract. "Your mother's been calling. The dinner with the Adebayos is tonight, remember? Final wedding details?" Her gaze slid to Amara, then back to Ekene. "Am I interrupting?" "Not at all," Amara said quickly, stepping away from Ekene. "Mr. Nwachukwu was just informing me about the job. Thank you for the opportunity." She turned to leave, but not before catching the proprietary way Zainab placed her hand on Ekene's arm, the same gesture she'd made at the wedding. Not his fiancée, perhaps, but definitely something more than a business partner's daughter. As she pushed through the revolving doors into the humid Lagos afternoon, Amara's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She had the job, the lifeline her family needed. But at what cost to her pride? To her heart? And why did she feel like she just stepped into a viper's nest? The toilet bowl became Amara's closest companion over the next few weeks. Every morning, like clockwork, she found herself hunched over it, emptying what little was in her stomach. "You need to see a doctor," her mother said, pressing a cool cloth to Amara's forehead. Nyala Okafor's hands, once steady enough to weave the most intricate patterns, now trembled slightly with the early onset of Parkinson's. This isn't normal. Amara closed her eyes, trying to quell another wave of nausea. "It's just stress, Mama. The new job is demanding." But even as she said it, a terrible suspicion had been growing in her mind. A suspicion that had sent her rushing to the pharmacy yesterday after work. The pregnancy test was still in her bag, untouched, as if not taking it could somehow prevent the truth from existing. Working at NMG had been both heaven and hell. The creative challenges energized her, and the paycheck had already allowed her to refill her mother's prescriptions and put a deposit down for Tobe's university fees. But every day was a minefield of potential encounters with Ekene. He kept his distance, their interactions strictly professional, but sometimes she would look up from her desk to find his eyes on her, dark with an intensity that made her breath catch. And then there was Nneka, unfailingly polite, even friendly, but with an underlying watchfulness that made Amara nervous. And Zainab, who seemed to materialize whenever Amara and Ekene were in the same room, draping herself over him with a possessiveness that belied his engagement to another woman. The company gossip was that Zainab had been Ekene's lover for years, but he was marrying Nneka to merge their families' business empires. Amara tried not to listen, tried not to care. But as she finally gathered the courage to take the pregnancy test that evening, she knew she could no longer afford the luxury of not caring. 2 lines. Clear as day. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Amara sank to the floor, her back against the cold tiles, a hand pressed to her mouth to stifle the sob that threatened to escape. Pregnant. With Ekene Nwachukwu's child. The same man who was engaged to the daughter of one of Nigeria's most powerful families. The same man whose paychecks kept her family afloat. "What am I going to do?" she whispered into the empty bathroom. Her phone buzzed with a text, startling her. It was from Chioma, her best friend, the one person who knew about the night with Ekene, though not his identity. "Dinner tomorrow? Haven't seen you since the new job started. Missing my best friend." Amara's heart clenched. Chioma would know what to do. Chioma always knew what to do. "Yes, please. I need advice." "It's an emergency." The next evening, in a quiet corner of their favorite restaurant, Amara spilled everything, the one-night stand discovering Ekene was her boss, and now, the pregnancy. Chioma's eyes widened with each revelation, but she didn't interrupt until Amara was finished. "Holy shit," she breathed, finally. "You're carrying a Nwachukwu baby. Do you know what that means?" "That my life is over?" Amara suggested miserably. "No, sis. It means you have leverage." Amara's head snapped up. "What?" "The Nwachukwus are old money, old values. A child out of wedlock, with an employee, while engaged to an Adebayo, the scandal would devastate them." Chioma leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You could name your price." "I'm not blackmailing anyone," Amara said, horrified, "especially not the father of my child." "I'm not saying blackmail," Chioma clarified. "I'm saying negotiate for your child's future, for your family's security." Amara shook her head. "I haven't even decided if I'm keeping it yet." But even as she said the words, her hand drifted to her stomach, and she knew they weren't true. She was keeping this baby. Somehow, some way, she would make it work. "Just promise me you won't make any decisions until you've talked to him," Chioma said, reaching across the table to squeeze Amara's hand. "He deserves to know, and you deserve support." Amara nodded, though the thought of telling Ekene made her stomach churn with more than just morning sickness. As they exited the restaurant, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The back window lowered to reveal a face Amara hadn't seen before, an older woman with Ekene's cheekbones and eyes like flint. "Miss Okafor," the woman said, her voice cultured, controlled. "I'm Obiageli Nwachukwu. I believe we need to talk." Chioma shot Amara a panicked look, but Amara squeezed her friend's hand reassuringly. "It's okay, I'll call you later." As she slid into the car's plush leather back seat, Amara's heart pounded with dread. How had Ekene's mother found her? What did she know? "I'll be direct, Miss Okafor," Obiageli said as the car pulled away from the curb. "I know about your indiscretion with my son." Amara's blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please, let's not waste time with denials. I had you followed after you left our offices looking ill 3 days in a row." Obiageli's smile was tight, calculated. Morning sickness is quite distinctive. Shame and anger battled within Amara. "That's a violation of my privacy." "And sleeping with my engaged son wasn't a violation of propriety?" Obiageli countered smoothly. "The Nwachukwu-Adebayo merger represents billions in assets and hundreds of jobs. It cannot be jeopardized by a momentary lapse in judgment. With all due respect, Mrs. Nwachukwu, your son wasn't engaged when we met." "Details." Obiageli waved a dismissive hand. "What matters is now. And now, you're pregnant with a child that threatens everything my family has built." She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a check, sliding it across the seat to Amara. "This should cover any medical procedures required, plus a generous severance package. You'll receive a glowing reference for your next position, of course." Amara stared at the check, unable to process the number of zeros. It was more money than she would see in years, enough to pay for her mother's treatments and Tobe's education with plenty left over. All she had to do was terminate her pregnancy and disappear. The thought made her physically ill. Slowly, deliberately, Amara tore the check in half. "I don't want your money, Mrs. Nwachukwu." Obiageli's eyes narrowed. "Then what do you want? To trap my son? To force your way into our family?" "I want nothing from you or your son," Amara said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "This is my child, my decision, and I'll raise it with or without Nwachukwu support." "Brave words," Obiageli said coldly, "but Lagos is a dangerous city for a single mother with no job." The threat hung in the air between them. "Are you firing me?" Amara asked, her voice small despite her determination to stand her ground. "That would be illegal," Obiageli said with a thin smile. "But I would reconsider your position if I were you, for your own safety and the safety of your family." The car pulled to a stop in front of Amara's apartment building. Before she could exit, Obiageli caught her arm on her grip surprisingly strong for a woman her age. "1 week, Miss Okafor. You have 1 week to make the right decision. After that," she trailed off, letting the implication speak for itself. As Amara stumbled from the car, her legs weak with fear and adrenaline, she didn't notice the figure watching from a parked motorcycle across the street, didn't see the phone raised, capturing her stricken face as she fled into her building. Didn't know that by morning, her world would implode in ways she couldn't imagine. The photo hit social media at 3 a.m. Amara, looking shell-shocked, exiting Ekene Nwachukwu's car. The caption, "Like mother, like son," the Nwachukwu family's newest conquest. By the time Amara woke, her phone was exploding with notifications. Calls from her mother, from Chioma, from colleagues at NMG, and most alarmingly, 3 missed calls from Ekene himself. But it was the text from an unknown number that made her blood run cold. "You should have taken the money. Now everyone will watch you fall. Zainab." It had to be. She had orchestrated this, knowing exactly how it would look. The struggling new employee leaving the company matriarch's car, looking devastated. The implications were clear. Either Amara was sleeping with Ekene's father, or she was somehow involved with the family in ways that went beyond professional. Neither scenario would end well for her reputation. With shaking hands, Amara called Chioma. "Don't go to work," her friend said immediately. "It's a setup." "I can't hide," Amara replied, though every instinct screamed at her to do just that. "It'll only make it look worse." "Amara, this is serious. Zainab Ose isn't just some jealous ex. Her father practically owns the Lagos Port Authority. And the Adebayos, they eat people like us for breakfast." "I haven't done anything wrong," Amara insisted, even as her other line beeped with another incoming call. Ekene again. "That doesn't matter in their world," Chioma said softly. "Just be careful, okay?" As Amara ended the call, her mother appeared in the doorway, her face lined with worry. "What's happening, Amara?" "Mrs. Coker from next door just called to ask if you're really involved with your boss's father." Amara closed her eyes, the weight of her situation crashing down on her. "It's not true, Mama. It's all a misunderstanding." "Then fix it," Nyala said simply. "The truth always rises to the top, like cream. If only it were that simple." The NMG offices were hushed when Amara arrived, conversations stopping abruptly as she passed. She kept her head high, though her stomach churned with both morning sickness and anxiety. At her desk, a single white lily lay atop a folded note. "My office, now!" Taking a deep breath, Amara gathered whatever dignity she had left and made her way to Ekene's executive suite. His assistant, normally friendly, wouldn't meet her eyes as she buzzed Amara in. Ekene wasn't alone. Nneka and Zainab flanked him like sentinels. Neka's expression unreadable, while Zainab wore a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Shut the door," Ekene said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Amara did as instructed, her heart pounding. "I can explain." "Can you?" Zainab cut in, her tone silky. "Can you explain why you were meeting secretly with Mrs. Nwachukwu? What were you discussing, I wonder? Perhaps the night you spent with her son?" Amara felt the blood drain from her face. "How did you?" "I was at the wedding too, remember?" Zainab's smile turned predatory. "I saw you leave with him, and I saw you start working here 6 weeks later. Quite the coincidence, don't you think, Nneka?" Nneka hadn't moved, her gaze fixed on Amara with an intensity that was unnerving. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. "Did you sleep with my fiancé?" The directness of the question caught Amara off guard. She looked at Ekene, who stood rigid behind his desk, his expression giving nothing away. "Yes," Amara admitted finally, "but it was before I knew who he was, before I knew about you." "And now?" Nneka pressed. "Are you still sleeping with him?" "No," Amara exclaimed. "I would never." "Then why were you meeting with his mother?" Zainab interjected, circling Amara like a shark. "What were you plotting together?" "I wasn't plotting anything," Amara said, her voice rising despite her efforts to stay calm. "She ambushed me outside a restaurant. Amara hesitated, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. Ekene's eyes tracked the movement, widening slightly. "She what, Amara?" The air in the room seemed to thin. Amara looked from Ekene to Nneka to Zainab, knowing that whatever she said next would change everything. "She offered me money," Amara said finally, "to leave NMG, to go away quietly." "Why would she do that unless you were causing problems?" Zainab pressed, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes cold. "What kind of problems could a new graphic designer possibly cause for the Nwachukwu family?" "Enough, Zainab," Ekene said sharply. "I'd like to speak with Miss Okafor alone." "Ekene, you can't be serious," Zainab protested. "After what she's done." "I said enough." His voice left no room for argument. "Both of you, please give us a moment." Nneka rose gracefully, straightening her already perfect dress. "Take all the time you need," she said, her voice oddly gentle. "But remember what's at stake, Ekene, for all of us." As she passed Amara, Nneka paused, her voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her. "Be careful. Zainab doesn't lose gracefully. Before Amara could process this cryptic warning, Nneka was gone, pulling a reluctant Zainab with her. The door clicked shut, leaving Amara alone with Ekene for the first time since that night. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "Please." Amara sat, her legs suddenly weak. "I didn't ask to meet your mother," she began. "She found me. She knows about us, and she took a deep breath. She knows I'm pregnant." Ekene went still, his expression frozen. "Pregnant?" he repeated, at the word hanging in the air between them. "You're certain?" Amara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "And it's," he started. "Yours," she confirmed. "There's been no one else." Ekene sank into his chair, running a hand over his face. "My mother offered you money to terminate the pregnancy. It wasn't a question, but Amara nodded anyway. And you refused." Another nod. "Why?" The question was quiet, genuine. Amara looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since that night. Behind the power and wealth, she saw the man who had danced with her, who had asked about her dreams, who had held her as if she were precious. "Because it's not just your baby or my baby," she said softly. "It's our baby. And I won't." "I understand," Ekene said, and something in his expression shifted, softened. "I wouldn't have wanted you to." Hope flickered in Amara's chest, small but persistent. "You wouldn't know." He stood, moving around the desk to kneel beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Amara, I need you to listen to me carefully. The situation is complicated, more complicated than you know." "Your engagement," Amara said, "the merger." "Yes, but it's more than that." Ekene's grip tightened. "My father's health is failing. The merger with the Adebayos is his final legacy, his way of securing the future of both families. If it falls through, if the Adebayos find out you've fathered a child with someone else," Amara finished for him. "It's not just the merger," Ekene continued, his voice urgent. "Zainab's father is dangerous when crossed. And the photo this morning, that was a warning. They're watching you." Fear coiled in Amara's stomach. "What should I do?" Ekene stood, pacing the length of his office. "We need time to figure this out, to protect you and the baby." "And your engagement?" Amara couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. Ekene stopped pacing, his expression pained. "Nneka and I, it's not what you think. Our arrangement is complicated, but she's not my enemy, and she might be the only ally we have right now." Before Amara could respond, a knock came at the door, and Ekene's assistant poked her head in. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but your father's cardiologist is on line 1. He says it's urgent." Ekene's face drained of color. "Take it in the conference room," he instructed the assistant, then turned back to Amara. "I have to go, but this isn't over." He moved toward the door, then paused, turning back to her. "Promise me you'll be careful. Don't trust anyone at NMG right now, not even Nneka, and don't go anywhere alone." The intensity in his eyes sent a chill down Amara's spine. "You're scaring me, Ekene." "Good," he said grimly. "You should be scared, but I won't let anything happen to you or our child, I promise." As the door closed behind him, Amara sank back in her chair, one hand protectively covering her stomach. She had come to NMG seeking financial security for her family. Instead, she had found danger, deception, and a love that threatened to destroy everything in its path, including her. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. It began with whispers that followed Amara through the office hallways, quickly escalating to accidental, coffee spills on her designs, and important emails that mysteriously never reached her inbox. Someone, Zainab, almost certainly had started a rumor that Amara had slept her way into her position, first with the elder Nwachukwu and then with his son. The story grew more salacious with each retelling, until Amara could barely walk to the bathroom without feeling judging eyes on her back. Ekene was conspicuously absent, called away to London for emergency meetings with international investors, according to official company communications. But the text he sent Amara told a different story. Father's condition worsening. Being kept away deliberately. Be vigilant. Trust no one. With each passing day, Amara's position at NMG became more precarious. Her designs were critiqued harshly in meetings, deadlines were moved up without notice, and the Zenith Bank campaign she'd worked so hard on was suddenly reassigned to another designer. "They're trying to force you to quit," Chioma said over lunch at a small cafe far from NMG's offices. "You need to document everything." "What's the point?" Amara asked tiredly, pushing her untouched food around her plate. Morning sickness had given way to a persistent nausea that seemed directly tied to her stress levels. Even if I fought it legally, what judge would rule against the Nwachukwus and Adebayos? They practically own this city. So what's your plan? Give up? That's not the Amara I know. Before she could respond, Amara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meet me in the parking garage, level B2, south corner. Come alone. Important information about Ekene. Nneka? Chioma asked, reading over Amara's shoulder. Maybe. Amara bit her lip, considering. Ekene said she might be an ally. Or it could be a trap, Chioma countered. Don't go. But curiosity and desperation won out. I need answers, Chi. I'll be careful. I'll call you as soon as I'm done. The NMG parking garage was eerily quiet at lunch hour, most employees out enjoying the rare, sunny day. Amara's footsteps echoed as she made her way to the deserted corner specified in the text. Her hand clutched her phone, thumb hovering over the emergency dial button. Hello? She called, her voice swallowed by the concrete walls. Nika? Movement behind a pillar caught her eye. A figure stepped forward, but it wasn't Nneka's elegant form. It was Zainab. So predictable, she said, her smile cold. You really should be more careful about who you trust. Amara backed up, alarm bells ringing in her head. What do you want, Zainab? Want? I want what's rightfully mine. Zainab stalked forward, her stiletto heels striking the concrete like punctuation marks. Do you know how long I've been by Ekene's side? How many years I've spent cultivating the relationship between our families? The Nwachukwus and the Oseys are destined to rule Lagos together, not the Adebayos, and certainly not some nobody from the mainland with a bastard in her belly. Amara's hand instinctively moved to protect her stomach. How did you? Oh, please, Zainab scoffed. Women know these things. The way you rush to the bathroom every morning, the way you've stopped wearing your fitted dresses, the way Ekene looks at you, like you hold something precious of his. She stepped closer, eyes glittering with malice. But it won't matter soon. By the time Ekene returns from London, you'll be gone. Fired for incompetence, your reputation in tatters. No design firm in Lagos will touch you. You can't intimidate me, Amara said, though fear was a cold knot in her stomach. My work speaks for itself. Does it? Zainab pulled out her phone, scrolling through it with deliberate slowness. Let's see. The Zenith campaign you were removed from? It was because your designs were derivative and uninspired. At least, that's what the creative director's report will say. And those deadline extensions you requested last week? Clear evidence of an inability to manage your workload. She looked up, smiling at Amara's stunned expression. And of course, there's the little matter of the confidential company information you've been sending to competitor firms. What? I've done no such thing. Your company email says otherwise. Quite careless of you, really. Understanding dawned, horrifying in its clarity. You hacked my account. Hack is such an ugly word. Let's just say I've been managing your digital footprint. Zainab tapped a manicured nail against her phone. And tomorrow morning, the board will receive a comprehensive report of your corporate espionage activities. No one will believe it, Amara insisted, though her voice wavered. Everyone will believe it, because it's so much more palatable than the truth that the golden boy of Nigerian media knocked up a nobody during a one-night stand. Zainab moved closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. I'm giving you one chance, Amara. Resign today. Leave Lagos. Never contact Ekene again. Or what? Or your little brother, Tobe, isn't it? Will lose his university scholarship. Your mother's healthcare coverage will mysteriously lapse, and that little apartment you call home, the building might just fail its next safety inspection. Ice flooded Amara's veins. You wouldn't. Try me. Zainab's smile was all teeth. You have until the end of the day. Resign or watch your life fall apart piece by piece. With that, she turned and walked away, her laughter echoing in the empty garage. Amara stood frozen, fear and rage battling within her. She didn't doubt Zainab's threats. The Osei family's reach was legendary. But how could she walk away from the only job that could support her family, from the father of her child? As she moved to leave, a sharp pain shot through her abdomen, doubling her over with its intensity. Another followed, then another. Warm wetness trickled down her thighs. No, she gasped, recognizing with horror what was happening. No, please, not now. She fumbled for her phone, but it slipped from her trembling fingers, skittering across the concrete floor. As she lunged for it, her foot caught on something, a deliberately placed tire iron, she would later realize, and she fell. Her last conscious thought before hitting the cold concrete was of her baby and the promise she'd made to protect it, a promise she was failing to keep. Beeping, steady, rhythmic, like a metronome counting time in a void. Amara clawed her way back to consciousness, each breath a battle against the weight pressing on her chest. White walls, antiseptic smell, the rough texture of hospital sheets. Reality assembled itself in fragments around her. A warm hand clasped hers, familiar despite the time that had passed. "Don't try to move," Ekene's voice, rough with emotion, anchored her. "You're safe now." "The baby," she croaked, terror making her heart race. The monitor beside her bed beeped more rapidly. "Still with us," he reassured her, his thumb rubbing gentle circles on her palm. "But it was close. You've been unconscious for 2 days." 2 days. Amara struggled to process this. How? "Nneka found you," Ekene explained, his voice tight with controlled anger. She'd seen Zainab heading to the garage and followed her, worried about what she might do. By the time she reached you, Zainab was gone and you were bleeding on the floor. Confusion swirled through Amara's foggy mind. "Nneka helped me? But she's your fiancée. She should hate me." A soft chuckle came from the doorway. "People are rarely as simple as they seem, Amara Okafor." Nneka stood there, elegant as always, but with dark circles shadowing her eyes, suggesting she'd been at the hospital as long as Ekene had. "I'll leave you two to talk," she said, stepping back. "But the doctor wants to check on you when you're feeling up to it." As she turned to go, Amara called out, "Thank you for saving us." Nneka paused, a sad smile touching her lips. "Some things are worth saving, no matter the cost." With that cryptic statement, she disappeared down the hallway. "I don't understand," Amara said, turning back to Ekene. "Why would she help me? Why isn't she furious about the baby?" Ekene sighed heavily, looking suddenly older than his years. "Because our engagement was never real, Amara. It was a business arrangement, agreed upon by our families." "But the merger is real and necessary. But Nneka and I," he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "We've been friends since childhood. We understand each other." She agreed to the engagement to appease her parents and protect her brother. "Protect him from what?" "From who he loves," Ekene said simply. Adebayo Investments is a conservative company with a public image to maintain. The heir to the empire being gay would be problematic in their eyes. Understanding dawned. "So you were covering for him, and she was helping you." "Yes, it was mutually beneficial, until you came along." His gaze softened as it rested on her. "Until I fell in love with you that night." Amara's breath caught. "You barely knew me." "I knew enough," he insisted, echoing the words she'd spoken at the wedding. "And everything I've learned since has only confirmed what I felt then." Tears welled in Amara's eyes. "But your father is recovering," Ekene supplied. "The London trip was a ruse. I was actually at his side in a private clinic in Abuja. His condition was exaggerated by my mother to keep me away from you." "Why would she do that?" Ekene's expression darkened. "Because she's been working with Zainab for years. The Osei partnership was her dream, not my father's. She thought if she eliminated you from the picture, I would turn to Zainab for comfort. But Nneka was never the real impediment to my mother's plans. She knew about Nika's brother, knew our engagement was for show. Zainab was always her choice for me." Amara struggled to absorb all this information, her head spinning. "So what happens now?" "Now," Ekene said firmly, "we fight back. Zainab didn't count on Nneka finding you, or on my father recovering enough to regain control of the company. She definitely didn't count on this." He pulled out his phone, showing Amara a video, security footage from the parking garage, clearly showing Zainab placing the tire iron in Amara's path, then watching from behind a pillar as she fell. "Attempted murder," Amara whispered, horrified. "And assault on an unborn Nwachukwu heir," Ekene added grimly. "In my father's eyes, an unforgivable offense, regardless of the circumstances of conception." "You told your father about the baby?" Panic fluttered in Amara's chest. "I had to, when I thought I might lose you both." His voice broke, and Amara saw the toll the past days had taken on him. He was surprisingly supportive, said it was time the Nwachukwu line was continued by someone with real heart, not just business acumen. Hope fragile but persistent, bloomed in Amara's chest. And the Adebayos? Mr. Adebayo was understandably shocked, but once Nneka explained the full situation, including Zainab's actions, he agreed that the merger could proceed without the marriage component, particularly since... Since what? Ekene hesitated, then smiled. Since his son has finally decided to introduce his partner to the family with Nneka's encouragement. Turns out the elder Adebayo cares more about his children's happiness than appearances, a fact Nneka never believed possible until now. Amara closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the rapid shifts in her fortune, from the brink of losing everything to the possibility of having more than she'd ever dreamed possible. "And your mother?" she asked, opening her eyes to find Ekene watching her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. His expression hardened slightly. "Has been asked to take an extended vacation at our family home in Dubai. Her partnership with Zainab and her attempt to manipulate the company through my father's illness were the final straw. The board has temporarily removed from her position." "I'm sorry," Amara said softly, knowing that despite everything, Obiageli was still his mother. "Don't be," Ekene said firmly. "She made her choices, just as I've made mine." He leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Rest now. When you're stronger, we have plans to make." "Plans?" Amara asked, the sleep already tugging at her consciousness. "For our future," he murmured. "Yours, mine, and our child's." As she drifted off, Ekene's hand still clasping hers, Amara realized that sometimes the most unexpected encounters led to the most beautiful destinations, even when the path was fraught with danger. Sometimes one night really could change everything. 3 months later, Amara stood before the mirror in their penthouse, smoothing her hands over the swell of her baby bump, now prominently visible at 5 months. The bruises from her fall had long since faded, but the memory of that day remained a shadow at the edges of her happiness, a shadow that would finally be addressed today. "Are you sure you want to be there?" Ekene asked, appearing behind her in the reflection, his hands coming to rest protectively over hers on her belly. "No one would blame you for staying away." "I need to see it," Amara said firmly. "I need to see her face when the judge delivers the sentence." Zainab's trial for attempted murder had been swift and decisive, the security footage damning in its clarity. Her father's influence, which had once seemed insurmountable, had crumbled in the face of the combined forces of the Nwachukwus and Adebayos, especially once evidence emerged that she had been embezzling from her family's company to finance a lavish, secret lifestyle. Today was sentencing day. The courtroom was packed when they arrived, journalists from every major Nigerian outlet jostling for position. The case had captivated the nation, a tale of love, betrayal, and corporate intrigue among Lagos's elite. As they took their seats in the front row, Nneka slid in beside them, elegant as always in a conservative navy suit. "They're bringing her in now," she murmured. Zainab entered from a side door, flanked by court officers. Gone were the designer clothes and imperious bearing. In their place was a woman in a simple prison jumpsuit, her once perfect hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, her eyes darting nervously around the courtroom. When those eyes landed on Amara, they widened slightly, then narrowed with a hatred that made Amara instinctively press a hand to her stomach. Ekene's arm tightened around her shoulders. "She can't hurt you anymore," he whispered. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. The charges were read: attempted murder, assault with intent to cause bodily harm to an unborn child, corporate espionage, and embezzlement. The evidence was reviewed one final time, and then the moment everyone had been waiting for. "Zainab Ose, please rise for sentencing." She stood, swaying slightly, her lawyer's hand on her elbow to steady her. "This court finds your actions to be calculated, malicious, and demonstrating a shocking disregard for human life," the judge intoned gravely. "Your position of privilege in society only aggravates the seriousness of your crimes." Amara's heart pounded as the judge delivered the sentence: 15 years without possibility of parole. A gasp rippled through the courtroom, followed by the furious scribbling of journalists' pens. Zainab's composure finally cracked. "This is a setup," she screamed as the court officers moved to take her away. "She trapped him. She trapped Ekene with that baby." Her wild eyes found Amara again. "You think you've won? You'll never belong in his world. Never." As she was dragged from the courtroom, still screaming invectives, Amara felt not triumph, but a profound sadness. What kind of hatred could drive someone to such depths? What emptiness must exist in a heart capable of such calculated cruelty? "It's over," Ekene said softly, helping her to her feet as the courtroom began to empty. Finally over. But Amara knew it wasn't, not completely. There was still one more confrontation to face. Ekene Nwachukwu had returned from Dubai a week ago, summoned by her husband. The elder Nwachukwu, now recovered enough to retake his position as chairman of the board, had insisted on a family dinner, all of the family, including Amara. "We don't have to go," Ekene said later that evening as Amara fretted over what to wear to meet her future mother-in-law again, this time as an acknowledged part of the family. Father would understand. "No," Amara said, selecting a modest but elegant maternity dress in deep emerald. "We can't hide forever. And I won't have our child grow up without knowing their grandmother, despite everything." Ekene's eyes filled with a pride that made Amara's heart swell. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" "Only 3 times, she teased, turning for him to zip her dress. "You're falling behind schedule." His lips brushed the nape of her neck. "I love you, Amara Okafor. Your strength, your forgiveness, your heart." She leaned back against him, savoring the moment of peace before the storm that dinner would undoubtedly bring. "I love you too. Enough to face your mother." The Nwachukwu family estate was a colonial-era mansion in Ikoyi set amid lush gardens that seemed to isolate it from the chaos of Lagos. As their car crunched up the gravel driveway, Amara's nervousness returned full force. "Remember," Ekene said, squeezing her hand, "my father is on our side, and this is his house." Chinedu Nwachukwu met them at the door himself, leaning on a cane but otherwise showing remarkable recovery from the heart attack that had nearly claimed his life. He was a striking man, with the same sharp cheekbones and intense gaze as his son, though his hair was now more salt than pepper. "Ah, here they are at last," he said, his voice warm as he embraced his son. Then, to Amara's surprise, he took both her hands in his. "So you are the young woman who has captured my son's heart and carries my grandchild." "Yes, sir," Amara managed, intimidated despite his kindness. "No, sir, here. You will call me Baba, as my son does." His eyes twinkled. "And now let us go inside. My wife is waiting, and she has never been patient." The dining room was a study in opulence, crystal chandeliers, antique furniture, and a table long enough to seat 20, though only 5 places were set. Chinedu at the head, Obiageli to his right, Ekene and Amara to his left, and at the foot. "Nneka?" Amara whispered, stunned to see her former fiancé already seated, sipping wine and looking completely at ease. "Did you think I would miss this?" Nneka murmured back, rising to greet them. "Someone needs to be here to pick up the pieces if things shatter." Obiageli rose as they entered, her face a mask of polite indifference. She was as elegant as ever in a traditional lace wrapper and blouse, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. "Ekene," she acknowledged with a nod. Her gaze slid to Amara, lingering on her baby bump. "Ms. Okafor." "Mother." Ekene's voice held a warning. "It's all right," Amara said, stepping forward with more confidence than she felt. "Mrs. Nwachukwu, thank you for having me in your home." Something flickered in Obiageli's eyes, surprise, perhaps, at Amara's composure. She nodded stiffly and retook her seat. Dinner was a tense affair, conversations stilted and mostly carried by Chinedu and Nneka, who seemed determined to bridge the chasm between the two women. Ekene remained vigilant at Amara's side, ready to intervene at the slightest provocation. It was only when dessert had been served that Chinedu cleared his throat, setting down his spoon with deliberate care. "I believe it is time we addressed the elephant in the room." Silence fell, thick and expectant. "Obiageli," he continued, turning to his wife, "you attempted to remove from our family the woman our son loves and the child that carries our bloodline, a child that may well be the only grandchild we ever have." Obiageli's lips thinned. "I was protecting our family's interests." "No," Chinedu corrected firmly. "You were protecting your own vision of what our family should be, a vision I have never fully shared." He turned to Amara, his expression softening. "My dear, my wife owes you an apology, one I fear may be long in coming, but know this, you are welcome in this family. You and the child you carry are Nwachukwu's now, with all the protection and privilege that entails. Tears pricked at Amara's eyes at the unexpected acceptance. Thank you, Baba. As for you, Chinedu continued, turning back to his wife, you have a choice to make. You can accept Amara and your grandchild, or you can remove yourself from our lives. I will not have division in this family any longer. Obiageli's face drained of color. You cannot mean that. You cannot mean that. I have never been more serious, Chinedu replied, his voice gentle but firm. I nearly died, Obi. It changes a man's perspective. I want peace in my remaining years. I want to know my grandchild. And I want my son to be happy with the woman he has chosen, not the woman you selected for your own purposes. For a long moment, Obiageli said nothing, her gaze fixed on her dessert plate. Then slowly she raised her eyes to meet Amara's. My husband speaks of choices, she said, her voice carefully controlled. But you made your choice that night at the wedding, a choice that seems to have led you exactly where you wanted to be. Mother, Ekene warned again, but Amara placed a hand on his arm. You're right, she said, holding Obiageli's gaze. I made a choice that night. I chose to allow myself one evening of happiness after months of struggle. I chose to see your son as a man, not a billionaire. I chose to believe there was more to life than just surviving. She took a deep breath, her hand moving instinctively to her belly. But I did not choose this path. I did not plan to get pregnant. I did not expect to fall in love. And I certainly did not set out to become part of your family. Her voice strengthened. Those things happened because life is unpredictable and sometimes beautiful in its surprises, just as your grandchild will be beautiful regardless of the circumstances of their conception. Obiageli's expression remained unreadable, but something shifted in her posture, a subtle relaxation, as if a decision had been made. I have spent my life protecting this family, she said finally, its reputation, its legacy, its bloodline. And you've done so admirably, Chinedu said, reaching to cover her hand with his. But perhaps it's time to redefine what protection means, to see that new blood may be exactly what the Nwachukwu line needs. Silence fell again, stretching taut between them all. Then, with deliberate slowness, Obiageli set down her napkin and rose from her seat. For a heart-stopping moment, Amara thought she was leaving, rejecting her husband's ultimatum. Instead, she walked around the table to stand before Amara. You have proven yourself resilient, she said, her voice low but clear. More resilient than I anticipated. Perhaps that is a quality the Nwachukwu family needs. It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement, a beginning. Amara nodded, understanding the olive branch for what it was. And perhaps I have things to learn from you as well, about strength, about family, about tradition. Something flickered in Obiageli's eyes. Approval, possibly, or at least assessment. Without another word, she returned to her seat. The tension in the room eased like a storm cloud passing without breaking. Ekene squeezed Amara's hand under the table, his relief palpable. Well then, Chinedu said, beaming around the table, now that we are all in agreement, perhaps we should discuss the wedding plans. The waves lapped gently at the private beach, the sand warm beneath Amara's bare feet, as she watched Ekene chase their daughter along the shoreline. At 8 months old, Adana was already showing signs of her parents' determination, crawling with a fierce concentration that made Amara laugh. Be careful with her by the water, she called, though she knew Ekene was vigilant. From her spot under the large umbrella, Amara's mother smiled, the new treatments having slowed the progression of her Parkinson's significantly. Beside her, surprisingly, sat Obiageli, watching her granddaughter with an intensity that bordered on obsession. The relationship between the two grandmothers had evolved into something approaching friendship, or at least mutual respect, over the months since Adana's birth. They were united in their devotion to the baby, if nothing else. She has the Nwachukwu determination, Obiageli observed as Adana stubbornly tried to crawl in the wet sand, refusing Ekene's attempts to redirect her. But your eyes, Amara. Thank God for that. Amara smiled at what passed for a compliment from her mother-in-law. Progress came in small steps, but it came nonetheless. Tobe jogged up from the water, his chest now bearing the faint scar from his surgery, but his smile as bright as ever. His university studies were going well, and he had already been offered an internship at NMG for the summer. "Sis, Nneka's here," he called, "with a surprise guest." Amara turned to see Nneka approaching across the sand, elegant even in casual beach attire. Beside her walked a tall, handsome man who bore the unmistakable Adebayo features, though his smile was warmer than his father's had ever been. "Kofi," Amara greeted warmly, rising to embrace Nneka's brother. "I'm so glad you could join us." "We couldn't miss Adana's first beach day," he replied, his arm draped comfortably around the shoulders of the man who accompanied him, his partner, now openly acknowledged by the Adebayo family. Besides, Nneka had news she insisted on delivering in person. Nneka's smile was radiant as she held out her left hand, a stunning sapphire ring glinting on her finger. "Dayo proposed last night. We're thinking a spring wedding." Amara squealed in delight, embracing her friend. The journey from potential rivals to sisters of the heart had been unexpected but precious. "I'm so happy for you." "I have you to thank," Nneka said softly. "If you hadn't crashed into our lives, I might never have found the courage to choose my own path." Speaking of crashing, Kofi interjected with a wink. "Have you heard the latest about Zainab?" Amara's expression sobered. "No." "What's happened?" "Her appeal was denied," Nneka supplied, "and apparently she's found religion in prison, started some kind of inmate support group. Do you believe it's genuine?" Amara asked, remembering the hatred in Zainab's eyes that day in court. Nneka shrugged. "Who knows? People can change, I suppose, or they can become better at hiding who they truly are." The philosophical moment was interrupted by Adana's delighted squeal as Ekene lifted her high above the waves, her little legs kicking in excitement. "Mama," she called, spotting Amara. "Mama!" "That's my cue," Amara laughed, heading toward her family. The past and its shadows could wait. Today was for joy. Later that evening, as they put an exhausted Adana to bed in the beach house, Ekene wrapped his arms around Amara from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder as they watched their daughter sleep. "Happy?" he murmured. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied honestly, turning in his arms to face him. "Though sometimes I still can't believe it's real. That night at the wedding seems like a lifetime ago." "The best decision I ever made was asking you to dance," Ekene said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Though I still maintain fate would have found a way to bring us together, even if you'd refused." Amara smiled, remembering their conversation that night. "I believe we make our own luck, and what if luck delivers something unexpected? Then you grab it with both hands and don't let go." "Either way," she said, rising on tiptoes to kiss him softly, "I'm grateful for that night, for the courage to take a chance, for the strength to face what came after." Ekene's arms tightened around her. "We've weathered storms that would have broken others. And we'll weather whatever comes next," Amara agreed. "Together." As moonlight filtered through the nursery curtains, casting their sleeping daughter in a silver glow, Amara reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a chance meeting at a wedding to a family forged through adversity, their story was a testament to the power of unexpected love. One night, one choice, a lifetime of love. Sometimes the most unexpected encounters led to the most beautiful destinations. The end. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did writing it. Leave a thumbs up and a pretty little subscribe for me so I can keep going. Stay happy.